So, just got to Somerset, found a little patch of fish, and I fired out a couple casts. Actually, I had 2 rods on the go. I threw my plastic rod out, and I haven't wound it back yet. I'm just going to buzz it back flat out. I'm not worried about fishing it, because second cast on the tail spinner, fishing the new 18-gram jets, the wet dream, and it's nailed the fish. So I've actually got it out there now. I just sank it to the bottom while I was mucking around with that plastic. Quite a bit of wind there today. It's probably blowing around about 15 knots, I guess, just across the flat. So I'm getting a good cast out. It's 18-gram lure. It probably throws, I guess, a good 60 metres I'm getting on the cast. Big cast. So I'm covering a lot of area. I'm getting back to fish. I just had a rattle there. I'm getting back to fish that aren't schooling under the boat with such a big cast. The last fish that I caught was actually winding. I'm just trying a hopping retrieve just for something different. And then the next retrieve I do will be a winding one again. I'm just going to keep mixing it up like that. So, the fish I caught before was just 4 or 5 fast ones to buzz that lure a metre or 2 off the bottom, and then just into a slow roll just to continue it through those fish. There was a few there before. They were actually sitting off the bottom a bit today, so we'll see what happens. There's one, just ate it on the drop. So there we go. Second cast, the wet dream nails the fish, and the third cast. Doesn't feel like a big bass, but exactly the same as the first fish. Just rolled it up through those fish. It's getting those followers, and I'm actually free spooling, opening the bail arm up for the drop, free spooling it back to the bottom, and kapow! He's on. So this is a great start for the day. So you'll see a lot of guys when they fish their tail spinners, they just think hop, hop, hop. It's not all about hopping. You'll get a lot of fish just slow rolling as well. A lot of fish. There's so many ways to fish these things. Provided they're moving, they're working, and there's a chance you're going to catch a fish. Just keep that lure moving. And if you ask my young bloke, he's only 11, he actually dead sticks his, so his sometimes in between moving, it's just hanging there and the fish are still whacking it. So when it's down there in the fish, it's catching, and this is just a little fella. The last one was a good 40 centimetre fish. This fella's only about 35 to the fork of the tail. We'll just have a look at that. He's just nipped that tail spinner there. That's the 18-gram jet. Just nipped it on the tail. We'll pop him back straight away. It's a good idea when they are chewing a bit just to keep going, because the bite can shut down once you pull a few. That fish wasn't all that far from the boat either. He's probably only about 30 or 40 metres away, so that's a good sign. A few fish there on the sounder as well, so let's hope today's a good day. When you're casting for bass, try and fire out a massive cast. So I've got about 50 or 60 metres on that one there, wind assisted, wind up behind me. The boat's sitting on the iPilot, on the Minn Kota iPilot, just anchored in the one position. And I know that there's a nice flat running through there. It's all sort of between 10 and 12 metres. Heaps of fish were stacked up along it. The further I can get back, the more chance I have of catching a fish without long lining. Don't like long lining if I don't have to. So that lure's hit the bottom now. So we'll start off with this retrieve, just doing a few hops before we do a few rolls. So give it a hop, back to bottom, a hop, back to bottom. When the fish are really high off the bottom, you may see some guys out there with their tail spinners doing the full big lift like this. Achieves a few extra feet on the lift. Not a great deal, but that's what's going on. They're just trying to lift that tail spinner higher up through the water column when the fish are higher off the bottom. I'd rather just do a few turns and lift at the same time. It's just a bit easier for me. That's what I find works. Just gets that lure up a bit. Love my winding with the tail spinner. It's an easy way to use it. Just going over a few fish there now. A few high up in the water column, so I'll stick with my rolling retrieve, buzz that lure right up through them. Just go into a slow wind. Got a fair wind drift happening there at the moment. there's a fish. He just ate it on the drop again. They're loving it on the drop today. This one's got a bit of size about. Oh, I've pulled out of him. That was a good fish. No, he's back. Another fish ate it as it dropped. Actually pulled out of that fish. I think, I know, it's a good fish. Don't know what happened there. Just everything went slack and I felt the blade on the tail spinner spin. So I reckon it's another fish has just come along and grabbed that after that big fella ate it. And this is a pretty good fish too. It's pretty chunky. It's got a bit of weight to it. It's not peeling enormous amounts of drag or anything, but it's a good bass. Just going to hit the anchor button on this. So we hold the position for a little while. We might get another shot in there. This fish is either hooked a bit in the side or it's a pretty chunky fish because I'm having trouble lifting it. I just had a wind drift happening there and all I was doing was a few fast burns just to burn that lure up high off the bottom because there's a few fish up high in the water column today. So buzzing that lure up, then just going into a slow retrieve or sometimes even just using the wind to keep that lure working. I think this guy might be nearly worthy of a net. I'll just go up and grab it. Got my line marked blue at 18 feet, so he's 18 feet away. It's not a huge fish, but he's about as big as my first one of the day, around that 40 centimetre size by the looks of it. Just chunky fish. There we go. Ooh. Oh, and he's absolutely swallowed that like the first one. I've got the lure straight down his throat like that. It's really in there. Gonna need some pliers to shake that out. Since I've pulled up, the fish have just gone nuts on the sounder. So I'll pop that little wet dream out of there. Just gonna pop this guy in the live well. Just because the fish are so thick under the boat right now. We'll have a look at them actually. Have a look at this. The hummingbird is just lit up with fish there. Hummingbird's great for that sort of thing. I can tell this fish here is in the 40s. Another one in the 40s. Most of these are sort of low to mid 30s. There's a big fella right there. You see him and him. That guy's getting up into, you know, good 40 centimetre, 1.5 kilo fish. This fella here's around a kilo. Most of these are just under. See if we can catch another one. Drop back. There's bottom. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And we'll see how long it takes to hit bottom. There it is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If I was to see how long that takes to hit bottom, it's a good 2 metres to bottom. There's the bottom. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And there's bottom. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And there's the fish. He chased it up. So what we're effectively doing with the 6 fast burns is buzzing that lure like you would on a lift of your rod. So 6 winds, buzz it up about 2 metres off the bottom, roughly. And then the slow rolls after that is what gets the fish to bite. So in the buzz, you're attracting the fish. And then as you slow it down, the fish get a chance to bite it. And that's what's just killing it here at Somerset with this wet dream colour in that 18 gram. I'm sure the other colours in those jets would work as well, doing the same thing. They usually do. This is a pretty nice fish too. He's got a bit of weight to him. But one thing that I have found important with the technique today, and that can change from day to day, is that when I do drop back to the bottom, I'm giving it a little bit of slack. So I'm either putting the rod back towards the lure a little bit or opening up the bail arm, even if it is just for a split second. Fish is getting a bit closer there now. And it's another nice chunky Somerset bass. I'll pop him in here. Let's have a look at him. These are a nice fat fish at this time of year. I love to catch them. Let's watch those hooks. And there it is. Take a look at this guy. Nice fish. He's See, he's just nailed that lure. He's come in, one set of trebles, they're finding them, no worries. I've missed about 2 bites today and landed 4 fish, so it's not a bad hookup rate considering the time of year and that these fish are still a little bit shut down. Just pop that lure out. Look at that, nice chunky Somerset bass. Geez, they're fat. That fish is probably about 40, 41 to the fork, I'd say, at a guess. And I'll just pop him in the live well with his mate. We'll give that another go. So here's the lure that did the damage. That's the Wet Dream. We'll see how she goes again. We'll give him another go. Same sort of thing. So I've still got my mark out there, which in the distance there's one tree on a hill, and that's what I'm aiming at. Another good cast, 50 or 60 metres back out there. Now we'll just sink that down. So I'll talk you through that retrieve again. It's just pretty simple. Depending on the height of the fish, I'm taking 6 winds today to get me a couple metres off the bottom. So that just buzzes the lure fast up off the bottom like that. And then as you slow it down, it doesn't continue coming back up to the boat. We're actually going slow enough so that that lure can gradually cruise down onto the bottom in an arc. And for the last probably 3 or 4 winds, it's sitting just off the bottom looking for those bigger fish. And as you probably know, that's where sometimes those big bass sit, is nice and close to the bottom. So hoping for a really big fish today doing that same technique. Just popped this tail spinner down a ledge, just cleared the flat and stuck the boat on the iPilot out in about 50 feet and hopped down the ledge where I marked a few fish. And the trick seems to be just finding those fish that haven't been spooked by the boat. I just passed over them quickly, so I haven't actually been near these fish today. And just about every time that's happened, it's been a fish a cast. It's another chunky fish, around high 30s, maybe 40 centimetres to the fork. Might just swing him in. I'm not fishing light leader. I'm up around 12-pound leader. There's another nice chunky bass. He's smashed that lure. That's on pink eye, the pink eye colour. Once again, one of those foil colours in the 18-gram jets. Always been a fan of shiny in Somerset. You've only got to look at what these fish eat. Bony brim, there's a pretty good imitation of a bony. That's another nice fish. You'd be happy with him in your live well. He's a good kilo and a bit. I'll pop him back. Geez, they're fighting well. I'll just pop another cast there. I'd say all the fish are under the boat now. I'll give you a look at what's happened on the sounder in a second. While my lure's sinking here, check this out. There's just a bunch of smaller fish that have followed the boat out. Actually got some sitting really deep here on the bottom, which they may take a tail spinner jig down there. They often do in that depth of water. Heaps that have followed the boat out, so I'm guessing that there's not too many left on that ledge, but what is there should still be pretty active. So we'll pick that up. It's well and truly on the bottom now. And we'll give it a go down that ledge. There's one. Oh, yep, he's still on it. Oh, pulled out. I'll straight away drop back. Sometimes that active fish will light up his mates and his mates will get excited. So we'll drop back till it's just under where he was. Yep, and there's one of his mates. Yep, that worked. Often works. You get that one bite and all the fish get excited. Oh, give me a feed too. What did I miss out on? So his mates were active and they just pounced on that. So what I've done, the spot lock's on the electric. I know exactly the angle that line was back to that, heading back towards that bank over there. I've got a mark on it. I've got a dead tree. So the next cast, I'm just going to pop it out straight at that dead tree. He's just a little fella. Scoffed the pink eye.